Chapter 80. Outside the hotel. The sky was dark, the rain seemed to never stop, pouring down heavily on the ground. A slender blonde girl wearing a black raincoat was picking up things in the open trunk. Charlie and Penelope stood next to her and the car. Even though she was wearing a raincoat, she still couldn't avoid being splashed with rain on her face. Her hair that had just been wrung dry was soaked again under the heavy rain outside. But now Siddle didn't care anymore. Her eyes curiously looked at the new things in the trunk, her hands flipped it over and over, quickly pulling out a jet-black shotgun from the pile of weapons, estimating its weight, turning her head to ask Charlie, "How many bullets are there?" Charlie's eyes were dull, swallowing his saliva, a series of bloody associations flashed through his mind. Oh, my God. He originally wanted to ask what Siddle was going to do. Siddle didn't intend to waste her words with him. She pulled out a modern, exquisitely crafted crossbow from the trunk and threw it into Charlie's hands. The man hurriedly took it and saw the girl tilt her head slightly, glancing at him mockingly. "Don't call God anymore. God doesn't always protect you, but Comrade Kalashnikov can." Mikhail Timofeyevich Kalashnikov was the famous Soviet Union's chief designer of weapons. The creator of the AK-47. She said. Her tone was calm, but it seemed to carry a hint of amusement. The blonde girl said with a laugh, but her eyes were a bit cold, "Guess what's in the woods?" But no matter what, it couldn't stop her from going home. Charlie held the crossbow. He was really uneasy in his heart, but this worry was because of Colm. How could Charlie not be worried about his and his wife's safety when he followed such a strange and suspicious man with nothing to show for it? He thought for a moment, touched the crossbow, and said nothing more. But Charlie looked at the girl holding the jet-black gun with a calm expression, his mood complicated as he said, "Although you're right to be worried, but this was just an ordinary hunting gun. What did it have to do with the Kalashnikov, AK-47? Siddle looked at him silently, her face pale and expressionless. "Do you have any questions?" Charlie, "No. Forget it, this doesn't matter." He forced a smile. "Whatever you say is right." Penelope's eyes lit up slightly. This beautiful woman in a tattered wedding dress walked from Charlie's side to the front of the trunk. "I think I also need something that can protect me." This shotgun was the only firearm in Charlie's car besides the silenced pistol. Siddle took the gun, leaving behind a pile of bows, crossbows, and other hunting weapons. Penelope bent down to choose in the trunk for a while. In the end, the strongest armor she picked out was just a bow and arrow used for hunting. Penelope seemed a little disappointed, but she just frowned slightly, then quickly returned to her bright smile, ran to Charlie with small steps and put her arm around him, smiling sweetly. "I'm ready, honey. When can we go?" Charlie, why did it feel like his wife was starting to get excited? He looked at Siddle. "We wait until Officer John comes back." Siddle glanced at the hotel. A good man with fighting strength, weapons, and integrity would be very useful. Charlie seemed reluctant but said nothing. His wife beside him, Penelope, slightly lowered her head to look at the bow and arrow in her hand, her eyes revealing a bit of bloodthirsty excitement. Officer John quickly returned. Of course, he returned alone. Siddle leaned against the hotel door with her gun in her hand. When she saw John, she calmly greeted him. "I'm not lying, right? Malcolm is still alive." She had known long ago that John would definitely come back alone. After all, with Malcolm's weight, John definitely couldn't drag him back alone. John was soaked, and he touched Duke's police badge in the pocket he had just taken back. He took a deep breath, thinking about Malcolm's miserable state. He looked at the fair-skinned, slender blonde girl smiling in front of him, thinking that he couldn't look down on her from now on. Now that everyone was present, Colm stood up and limped towards his truck outside the door, with a group of people following behind. When Charlie passed by the tied-up woman, his eyes were full of calculation, but he didn't do anything. Before leaving, to prevent any unexpected incidents, Eva was not only tied up but also beaten unconscious, lying in the corner of the hotel. Colm's truck was very old, the headlights were cracked, and the heavy rain could not wash away the dried blood stains that remained. The truck only had a driver's seat and a passenger seat, which meant that there were only 2 people in the truck. The others could only sit in the open air, roofless back of the truck. This was where Colm had used to store animal carcasses, and there were many black dried blood stains left on it, and it smelled very fishy. Colm was the driver, he sat in the driver's seat, and the others looked at each other. Siddle looked at the police officer John. "Can you sit in the passenger seat?" John was stunned. He was originally thinking of letting the 2 girls or the child sit in, but after Siddle opened his mouth, the others seemed to have tacitly agreed not to continue. John could only agree. But before he got in the car, the blonde girl deliberately pulled him back and added, "Look carefully at the road ahead later. If you find any problems, you must report them." Siddle wasn't sure if any of these people were hallucinating, nor was he sure what was in the woods. Right now, it seemed like the most trustworthy person who could keep an eye on Colm was John. Before getting in the car, in order to make others believe him, Colm carefully explained to everyone the path through the woods they had to take to return to his house. "Although I've never been there before," Colm said, "I don't know if there's any danger inside." He noticed the weapons in everyone's hands and seemed a little relieved, but still reminded them. Only Belch didn't have any weapons, and Siddle didn't intend to find him any large-scale offensive weapons, such as crossbows. It wouldn't be any use for him to hold them. Just because of Siddle's request, Belch finally carried the large chainsaw he got from Leatherface onto the truck bed. When he heard Siddle's request, Belch's eyes widened and her mouth fell open. "Sister, you still want to use this chainsaw?" "No," Siddle said, "this chainsaw is useless. The weight is too heavy, the size is too big, the sound is too loud, and the effectiveness of cutting people is too low." Although Siddle liked it, this thing was really not very useful. It could be quite useful when threatening others, but when used to fight, it could only be said to be very useless. Belch was puzzled. "Then why do you still want to bring it?" Siddle, "No, you don't understand." She glanced at the large chainsaw that was almost a meter tall, and said in a low voice, "Looking at it makes people feel safe. Keeping this thing with her, maybe it can ward off evil spirits." Siddle wanted to sit in the truck bed, and the couple Charlie and Penelope followed closely behind. Belch sat in the corner, his whole body and head curled up under the iron sheet covering the car. This was also Siddle's request. "Oh my God, this place is terrible." Charlie complained in dissatisfaction, not wanting to put his feet down at all, but in the end he had no choice but to find a place to sit down. "Hopefully nothing unexpected will happen on the way," he said. Penelope fumbled with the bow and arrow in her hand. Without a car cover, the rain poured down on her. The blonde's beautiful face was covered in water. She wiped the rain off her face, touched her wet hair. The cold wind blew into her sleeves, so cold that it made people shiver. Siddle didn't tremble at all, she had to try to keep her hands steady. The girl's eyelashes drooped, her lips pressed tightly together. She picked up the gun to wipe the water off, her thin, fair fingers pushing each black bullet into the magazine. They have been treated with moisture-proof technology, will not be sprayed by rainwater. When Charlie said the words, "I hope nothing unexpected happens," Siddle felt a chill in her heart. This sentence sounded very similar to the catchphrase of the Crows. Something would definitely happen on this road. The truck swayed for a few minutes and then turned into the woods. There were tall, dense trees everywhere, and the road was hidden in the middle of the jungle. Rain poured down from the front windshield, and the bright headlights seemed to dispel the white curtain of rain. In the dark and damp jungle, the car stood out very well. A few minutes after entering the jungle, as expected, the unexpected happened. Rustle murmur. At first, there was only the sound of the car coming from far and near. The sound in the rain was like a thin layer of cloth, faintly ringing in her ears. This sound was too difficult to detect in the heavy rain, almost drowned out by the sound of rain falling to the ground. However, Siddle had always paid attention to the situation around her. Hearing the sound of the car, she kicked Charlie, who was sitting comfortably in the car, and called Penelope by the way. "Everyone sit up, hold your weapons, something is about to appear." How could another car appear in such a desolate mountain area? Charlie asked in confusion. He called out to Colm, "Do you know if there are any other people around?" "No," Colm shook his head. His attention was focused on driving on the muddy road. "I don't know if anyone lives in this forest." Penelope picked up her bow and arrow, looking a little nervous and a little excited, her body trembling slightly. She licked her lips and asked, "Could it be the sound of an animal? Maybe no one knows about this forest yet, so there are some big animals living here." "Siddle, no way." She patiently shook the barrel of the gun, moved her stiff fingers, adjusted her posture, and replied, "That's the sound of a car. Those people must have been following us for a while. They must have been aiming at them since they entered the forest. It's just that I don't know what those people are going to do, but it doesn't matter. Anyway. Only things that happen unexpectedly and I can't prepare for them are called accidents." "If that's the case," Charlie shrugged, picked up the crossbow next to him, and pointed it out of the car, "then this group of people are really a bunch of perverts." However, at this moment, in this car, there were 3 people in the trunk. The slender girl covered herself in a black raincoat, looking like she was hiding in the dark rain, holding her gun high in a standard posture. Penelope's white wedding dress was covered in mud, but she didn't care, her face was excited as she wiped the modern composite bow in her hand. Charlie seemed reluctant but still muttered complaints while adjusting the crossbow. "Belch." He quietly lay down, hugging himself tightly. Siddle looked at the alertness of the people in the carriage with satisfaction, and nodded, "Not bad." She thought for a moment and said, "Everyone, don't be afraid, we probably won't encounter those people in that carriage." Belch. "No, with such fully equipped people, who should be afraid in the end?" Then he heard Siddle continue to speak eloquently. "But we can't let our guard down. We might also encounter undead killers lurking in the jungle, deformed creatures, large beasts that haven't eaten enough for 3 months and are raised by humans. But none of these are a problem. If we encounter troublemakers, we'll beat them until they listen. If we encounter mutated creatures, we'll beat them until they return to normal. If we encounter large beasts, we'll be able to get more food. We have to believe that all demons/monsters can be eliminated by physical means." Belch. Charlie. Penelope. Although the people in that car might not be a threat, the one who could drive was probably still considered human, after all, but there was still a long way to go before the exit of the forest. Siddle remembered her own experiences from childhood to adulthood, thinking that they should be more cautious to avoid capsizing right at the exit. So, she confidently made an eloquent speech that stirred people's hearts. But after she finished speaking, the scene suddenly became silent. Siddle. She looked at the 3 people who suddenly fell silent, and couldn't help but say, "Don't you think what I said makes sense? Shouldn't they be in a state of boiling blood because of her stimulation, urged to pick up their weapons and fight?" Charlie. But he didn't want to meet immortal killers, deformed monsters, and hungry large beasts. Belch. He suddenly discovered that his sister might have a talent for telling light jokes. The only person who supported her was Penelope. Her eyes curved slightly, revealing a sweet smile, nodding, her words carrying a strange excitement, "Baby, you're really amazing. I believe we can open up a bloody path dash. If I meet those things tonight." Charlie. Wait. Why did his wife call someone else baby in front of him? Penelope raised the bow and arrow in her hand, leisurely shooting an arrow towards the dense forest, licking her lips, smiling and saying, "Tonight, will there be a bloody massacre? Tonight there will be a bloody massacre." The old car was stopped in the forest. A person stepped out of the car, if you can be considered human. This person reluctantly had human limbs, but his face was deformed, distorted to the point of looking like a monster in a horror movie. He yawned and gestured to the other deformed people in the car, speaking their own language. "Kill those people and take them home to eat." They would slaughter passers-by, take their corpses back to the wooden house and eat them. It seems like there are a lot of them, this time we can even get a car. Kill them. These people waved their arms and legs excitedly. The one who just got out of the car ran towards the curve according to the agreed plan. The two mutants in the car closed the door and continued driving forward. Why aren't they here yet? Charlie yawned sleepily, complaining in dissatisfaction, if they don't come, we're about to go out. Shoo, don't talk. Penelope said. The sound of the car disappeared not long ago. I think you guys are worrying too much, Charlie said. Maybe it's just some unlucky tourist like us. Before he could finish, he heard Colm growl. There's someone up ahead. Colm shouted. About 10 meters away, a person suddenly rolled out from the side of the road. This person seemed to have noticed the car lights, and waved his hand desperately, intending to stop the truck. Stop the car quickly. Move over. Two sentences rang out at the same time. The first sentence was from John sitting in the passenger seat, and the second was from Siddle.